The wind howls across the open seas, the salty air fills your lungs, and the distant cry of seagulls echoes in the background. Beneath the surface, something darker lurks, a time when the world's most powerful empires lost control, and the high seas became a battleground for lawlessness, greed, and adventure. Welcome to the golden age of piracy, a time when pirates ruled the waves and the might of empires seemed powerless to stop them. But what led to this? How did the mighty British, Spanish, and French empires lose control to a ragtag bunch of seafarers, rogues, and outcasts? Buckle up as we dive deep into the golden age of piracy, a time of rebellion, treasure, and chaos on the high seas. Picture this. It's the early 18th century and the Spanish Empire controls vast swathes of the Caribbean and the Americas. The British, French, and Dutch are constantly at odds, trying to carve their own piece of the lucrative New World. Meanwhile, pirates, outlaws who once feared the law, are now feared themselves. But how did the pirates come to hold such power? To understand that, we need to look back at the conditions that gave rise to this extraordinary period of maritime lawlessness. The rise of piracy was fueled by the vast wealth flowing from the New World, the constant wars between empires, and the allure of freedom on the open seas. This was a time when the line between hero and villain blurred and the legend of the pirate was born. The early 1700s were a time of massive global expansion. European empires were entrenched in an ever-growing competition for colonies, wealth, and power across the world's oceans. The Caribbean was the jewel of this new world, with treasure-laden ships constantly crossing the Atlantic, making easy targets for those who knew the sea. The Spanish particularly were flush with gold and silver from their New World colonies, bringing riches back to Europe, but they couldn't protect it all. The sheer volume of trade and the distance between Spain and its colonies made the Caribbean a virtual pirate's playground. For years, the Spanish had a near monopoly over the riches flowing from the Americas, but the tide was about to turn. Enter the pirates, men and women who lived outside the law, thriving in the chaos of the seas. They saw an opportunity to take what empires had long hoarded. These pirates weren't just rogue adventurers, they were former sailors, ex-soldiers, and even runaway slaves who had nothing left to lose. They banded together, forming pirate crews who attacked merchant ships with impunity. They knew the waters better than any navy, and their knowledge of trade routes gave them an edge that no empire could easily match. The Caribbean islands themselves became pirate hideouts, with hidden coves and secret bases scattered throughout. This was the golden age of piracy, where the line between pirate and privateer was often blurred. And for many, the lure of treasure and freedom was too great to resist. And then there were the legends. Blackbeard, Edward Teach, with his terrifying figure and ruthless tactics, became the embodiment of pirate fear. Anne Bonny and Mary Red, fierce and fearless, defied the gender norms of their time to fight alongside the men. These pirates became symbols of defiance against the empires that once ruled them. But what made them so dangerous wasn't just their audacity, it was the timing. The golden age of piracy didn't happen in a vacuum. It was the result of multiple factors converging at the right moment. And the pirates were quick to take advantage of it. First, there was the collapse of traditional power structures. After decades of warfare between European powers, wars like the War of Spanish Succession, 1701 to 1714, navies were stretched thin. The empires had to deal with defending their new colonies while also maintaining control over the oceans. That left an opening for pirates to operate freely, without fear of an immediate military response. Moreover, the once strict policies that governed the seas were becoming more lenient, with widespread corruption among colonial authorities and the expansion of privateering, essentially legalized piracy. The lines between lawful and unlawful behavior became blurred. These legends and the shifting power structures created a perfect storm for piracy to thrive. One key factor in the rise of piracy was the explosion of trade in the Americas. The Caribbean became the hub for ships traveling between the Old World and the New World. This created a massive flow of goods, including gold, silver, tobacco, sugar, and rum. Ships carrying these goods were incredibly valuable targets for pirates looking to make their fortune. In fact, some of these pirates became richer than entire nations. The Spanish and other European empires tried to control the seas, but they were faced with an overwhelming logistical nightmare. The trade routes were so vast and the number of pirates so numerous that defending every ship became a nearly impossible task. Pirates didn't just attack merchant ships, they also targeted other vessels carrying military goods, weakening the power of the empires. The pirates knew how to navigate the intricacies of the seas, while empires were tied down by bureaucracy, outdated naval tactics, and limited resources. As empires tried to fight back, they often found themselves fighting multiple enemies. Pirates didn't operate in isolation. They formed loose alliances with rival European powers, turning the Caribbean into a chaotic battleground. This fragmented the power of the empires and made it easier for the pirates to strike. The pirates didn't just want gold, they wanted power, they wanted control of the seas. Their tactics were ruthless and strategic, often outsmarting the more rigid naval forces. This combination of cunning and brutality made them a formidable force on the high seas. Pirates employed advanced naval tactics, using speed and surprise to outmaneuver larger, slower ships. They also established secret trade networks, negotiating with local traders to secure supplies and information. Ambushes and surprise attacks were common, with pirates emerging from hidden coves or fog banks to strike. After a successful raid, pirates would quickly disappear, leaving their enemies scrambling to respond. This relentless and unpredictable approach kept the empires on edge, constantly reacting to the pirates' next move. But even with their cunning tactics and military skills, the pirates were not invincible. The empires fought back, and hard. Spain, Britain, France, and the Netherlands launched expeditions and sent warships to eradicate piracy. And yet the pirates held on. Why? Because they had something the empires lacked, a deep understanding of the terrain. Pirates lived off the land, taking refuge in remote islands or hidden coves. They didn't need to maintain large fleets or supply chains. The empire's large, slow-moving ships were at a disadvantage. Pirates would pounce on a vulnerable target and disappear into the jungle or hidden bays before a naval force could respond. The empires, however, were relentless. They regrouped, repaired their fleets, and devised new strategies. With renewed vigor, they continued their pursuit, determined to bring an end to the pirate threat. Battles raged across the seas, with both sides suffering heavy losses. Despite their resilience, the pirates began to falter under the relentless pressure. The empire's counterattacks grew more effective, slowly turning the tide in their favor. By the 1720s, the golden age of piracy was in full swing. Pirates had grown so bold that they attacked even naval vessels. Blackbeard in particular was known for his audacity, blocking the entrance to the port of Charleston, South Carolina, and holding it hostage for weeks. He wasn't just a thief, he was a tactician, a master at manipulating the fear and chaos of the time. But despite their early successes, the empire's efforts to curb piracy eventually began to bear fruit. A combination of better naval tactics, more aggressive hunting of pirates, and the declining profitability of piracy forced many of the most notorious pirates into retreat. Blackbeard was killed in a bloody battle with the British Navy in 1718. And many other pirates were either killed, captured, or turned into privateers under the Crown's service. The end of the golden age of piracy marked the end of an era, as the once feared pirates were no longer the rulers of the seas. The golden age of piracy ended in the 1730s, but its legacy lived on. The pirates had shaken the very foundations of empires and altered the course of history. They had exploited the weaknesses of powerful states and demonstrated that in a time of chaos, anyone could rise to challenge the powers that be. The golden age of piracy was a time when empires truly lost control. It was a time of rebellion, adventure, and freedom on the open sea. Pirates, once seen as nothing more than criminals, became symbols of resistance and defiance. They reminded the world that no matter how mighty an empire may be, there's always someone waiting in the shadows, ready to claim what's theirs. And that, my friends, is the story of the golden age of piracy. When empires lost control and the seas belonged to the pirates, the legacy of these pirates continues to inspire tales of adventure and rebellion. Their stories have been immortalized in books, movies, and folklore, reminding us of a time when the seas were wild and free. So, as we look back on this era, we see not just the chaos, but the spirit of defiance that continues to captivate our imaginations. Like, share and subscribe for more history stories.